Bruchim haboim. Welcome everyone. We're about to begin Be'ezras Hashem together on Daf Chav Beis Amud Beis. 6 lines from the top. The Gemara had set forth the previous Amud that we have two opinions. When it says Lo yoichal, do not eat in the Torah, does it mean only not eating? Or does it also mean not only is it prohibited to eat, but it's also prohibited to get hanoah? That's the machlokes between Rabbi Abohu and Chizkiah. Rabbi Abohu says it means also a prohibition of Isser Hanoah, whereas Chizkiah says no. If it says Lo yoichal, it means only you cannot eat. Only if it says Lo ye'ochel, then, since it says in a passive form, it shall not be eaten, it includes that anything will come to then bring about an eating, even that which is Asr Bahana. For example, if you were to sell something, then that would be a prohibited form of hana that will bring you to an eating. So therefore, Chizkiah says only in that scenario is it prohibited hana. The Gemara asks several questions on the Yeshita of Rabbi Abo, beginning with Dam, Giranoshe, and now the Gemara turns its focus to Eiver Min HaChai. Eiver Min HaChai, says the Gemara, Hare Eiver Min HaChai, Dirshu, it says Lo Soichal HaNefesh Im HaBasar. The Torah tells you, do not eat the nefesh, the life force, with the basar. That life force with the basar is referring to basar and aver while it's still alive. V'tanya, and it states in the Brayso, Rabbi Nosson Oimer, Minayin shelo yoishit odom kois yayin lenazir ve'aver minachai lebnei noyach. Where do we know, it says in the Brayso, that you cannot give a nazir who's prohibited from drinking wine a cup of wine? And where do we know that it's prohibited from giving an Eiver Minachai to a Gentile? Says the Gemara, since a Nazir is prohibited from drinking wine, you can't even give him a cup of wine, because you'll then bring him to a stumbling block by providing him with wine. Similarly, since a Ben Noyach of the Sheva Mitzvah B'nai Noyach, one cannot eat Eiver Minachai, it's prohibited from then giving him Eiver Minachai, because Lifnei Iver Lo Sitin Michshol. Says the Gemara, Hal Liklovim Shari. That's only regards to the prohibition of Eiver Minachai and the prohibition of not giving a Nazir a cup because of Lifnei Iver. But if not from Lifnei Iver, you could go ahead and give the Eiver Minachai to a Kelev. So you see that indeed the Eiver Menachai is mutter bahano, and yet the pasuk stated loy soichal hanefesh im habosar. So how can Rabbi Abo say loy soichal comes to include an iser of hano? Answers the Gemara, shiny Eiver Menachai the iskish ledam. Eiver Menachai is different. Why? Because there's a comparison within the pasuk to dam. The Chsiv says rak chazak lebilti achol hadam. Behold, be strong and not to eat the blood. Ki hadam hu nefesh, because the blood is the life force. Now this is the same pasuk as we brought before. I'll read you the entire pasuk. Lo rachazak lebilti echol adam. This is the reisha. Be strong not to eat the blood. Ki hadam hu nefesh, because that's the life force of the animal. V'lo soichal hanefesh im habasar. The Sefer Dekra says, and you shall not eat the basar, the aver, while it's alive. So you see from here a hekesh. What does it come to teach me? The hekesh comes to teach me, just like we learned before, that dam itself is mutter behano. So too there, Eiver Minachai is mutter behano. Ulechizkiah. And Chizkiah says, anyways, when it says lo seichal, it only means to prohibited eating. But it's anyways mutter bahano. Ask the Gemara, why do we need to make a comparison of Eiver Minachai and learn out from dam? We already know that since we know that Eiver Chai is mutter bahano, we don't need to learn it from dam. Answers the Gemara, Amar Loch, says Rabbi Chizkiah, dam hu the iskish le'Eiver Minachai. It's the opposite. Dam is compared to Eiver Minachai. Not like we said before, that Eiver Minachai is learned out from Dam, but rather Dam is learned out from Eiver Minachai as follows. Ma Eiver Minachai Osir, Af Dam Minachai Osir. Just like Eiver Minachai is Osir, and the Isser is an Isser of Kores, so too the Dam that comes from a living animal is also a prohibition of Iser Kares if you were to drink that dam. In other words, in regards to shechting an animal, when it's already going to be shechted, that dam that comes out, that we already know you're prohibited from eating it, whereby there's an Iser of Kares, because that's the indicative from the pasuk before. The pasuk earlier states, when regards to korbanos or shechting certain animals, but in regards to an animal that's alive, that only when you take out its dam, the life force, that itself is prohibited from drinking that dam while the animal is still alive. Granted, it will die as a result, but while you're taking out that dam, while it's still alive, that will be prohibited from drinking, and it'll be chayiv kares. That we only learn out from Ever Minachai. Ve'ezeh, and what is this that we're referring to? Dam hakozeh, shanefesh yoytzei boy. We're talking about bloodletting of the animal, of the dam hanefesh, life force of the dam that is leaving the animal. When one drinks that, he's going to be chayiv kares. Now the Gemara turns its focus to Shor HaNiskal. Indeed, Shor HaNiskal is the shor that killed a person and is now going to be stoned. Says the Gemara, V'harei Shor HaNiskal, Derachmana Omar Lo Ye'ochel es B'saroi. Here it states, Lo Ye'ochel es B'saroi. And again, according to Rabbi Abbahu, when it says Lo Yoichal, do not eat, including Lo Ye'ochel, it will include also a prohibition of Iser Hana. But even Chizkiah says, although when it says Lo Yoichal, it will only be prohibited to eat, but when it says Lo Ye'ochel, it means not only is it prohibited to eat, but since it's stated in its passive form, it comes to include Iser Hana. So the passage that says in regards to Shor HaNiskal, Lo Ye'ochel es B'saro, its basar, its flesh should not be eaten. V'tanya, and it states in the Brayso, Mimashma Shneemar, Soko Yisokil Hashor. Since it states in the pasuk that you shall stone this shor, this ox, Eini yodesh nevela, v'nevela asur ba'achila. Do I not know that once the shor is stoned, then it's not a shchita. Anything that's not a shchita is considered to be a nevela and is also to eat. So why does the pasuk say that it should not be eaten? I already know after it's stoned that it's something that's a nevela, cannot be eaten. So it seems to be superfluous by saying Lo Ye'ochel es B'saroi. Magi lecha, says the Brayso, this comes to teach you, Hakosu she'im shochtoi la'acha she'nigmar dinoi aser. Even if the animal, the shor, this ox was shechted after the gemar din, before it was stoned, still it will be prohibited to eat its meat. Says the Gemara, Ein ela ba'achila. I only know that is true, that it's prohibited to then eat the flesh. Behana minayin. Where do I know that's aser behana? Talmud Omer, the Brayso says, Ubala shor naki. It brings the rest of the verse that the owner is naki, the owner is innocent. My mashma. Now the Gemara makes a drasha. What does it mean? It's mashma naki. Shimon ben Zoyma Omer ki adam shomer lachaveiroi. Like a person who says to his friend, Yatsa ploini naki min nechasav. Ploni, certain person went out clean from his property. That means that without any benefit of the property. So we see over here from this drasha that we're learning over here that you can't have any hana from the basar of the Shor HaNiskal. Time of the cause of Bala Shor Naki. The only reason why that he cannot have any hana is because it says in this verse, Bala Shor Naki, which we just darshan to explain that he cannot have any hana, any benefit from it. Di'i milo yochel Isser achila mashma, Isser ano loy mashma. And therefore, when it says lo ye'ochel, that the animal shall not be eaten, it only means then to say that it cannot be eaten, but doesn't mean to say that it cannot be having any hana, any benefit from. Because that we need the pasuk that says, Ubala shor noki, kasha on not only Chizkiah, but over here, not only on Rabbi Abbahu, but even on Chizkiah, who also learns when it says lo ye'ochel, it's a prohibition against not only eating, but also hana. Answers the Gemara, La'olam lo ye'ochel iser achila v'iser hana mashma. Really, that when it says lo ye'ochel, it comes to include not only a prohibition against eating, but also a prohibition of hana, just like Rabbi Abbo and Rabbi Chizkiah maintain. Ubala shor naki lehanos oroi hu da'asa. That which it states, Ubala shor naki, comes to include the hides of the animal. That's what it comes to mean. Not coming to say that the basar, you can't have any hana. That we already know from lo yeochel. But when it says when it says the balashor naki, it comes to include the or. The istrich, and the Gemara states that this is necessary to be included. Because you might think that I should say lo yeochel as bisaro ksiv. Bisaroin oroloi. If it just says lo yeochel as bisaroi, I might think only it's basar. But the or not, because it says you shall not, the basar should not be eaten. So the basar is also to be eaten, and it's also prohibited to have any hana from. But I would not know the or. Kamash malon, therefore it says balashor naki, to include the hides, the or. Ask the Gemara, lahanach tanoi de mafki leila haikro lidrash achrino. Those tanoim that learn out ubalashor naki come to teach me something else. Lechetzi koifer uledemei vlodos. When it comes to koifer, when the animal kills a person, after 3 times the shore kills a 4th person, now the owner has to pay koifer. So if it's a muad, so you pay koifer, you pay the entire amount, an atonement payment. But what happens if it kills one when it's only a tam? Let's say the first killing. Maybe it has to pay only a half a koifer because of a tam. Just like a tam, unlike a muad that pays the entire nezek, tam only pays chetzi, half a nezek. So maybe the tam should pay half of a koifer. From that we learn, ubalashor naki, that doesn't pay half of the koifer. Similarly, when it comes to a pregnant woman, in contrast to if a man had gotten into a fight with somebody else and accidentally killed a fetus by hitting a pregnant woman, will he be chayiv for the value of the fetus? If the shore kills the fetus, then we say the balashor is naki. So they learn out the word balashor naki for these different drushes. In which case, where do they know that the or of the shore is prohibited? Answers the Gemara, nafkeluhu me'es bisaro. They learn out from the word es bisaro. It says in the post that we read before that it says lo ye'ochel es bisaroi. The word es they darshan to include the or. Es hatafel lebisaro. Es comes to include that which is tafel to the basar, the hainu, the or, which is prohibited. The idoch, and the other one that says that it comes from a balashor naki. What does he do with the words me'es bisaroi? Es loy darish. He doesn't darshan the es as a ribui. Take a look at Rashi parallel to this Gemara. Es loy darish. Liribuya, the word es, he does not make a drasha to as an inclusion. The savar lo kishimin ha'amsui. Shepirash kol esin shebatar l'rabos. Shimon Hamsui, he made a drush of all the esin in the Torah. Every time it said es, he said it comes to merabe, comes to include something. Kivan she'igia le'es Hashem lokecha tira, when he got to the pasuk es Hashem lokecha tira, that you shall fear Hashem. So what does the es come to compare it to? How can you compare somebody to the fear of Hashem? How can you have the same type of fear? Amar, he said to himself, Ma'ar belira imoy. What can I come to include in this S to the fear of Hashem? Pirash, he desisted, Mikulon, from all the S that he darshaned. V'chazar boy mikol ribuin shedorash. And he then was chayzer boy from all of those drashos of Esin. If this is not able to then be expounded, Es Hashem lokecha tira, then I have to also then retract all of my expounding of the other esin in the Torah. Come back to the Gemara now. The Gemara now says, ask the question, V'idach, and the one who learns Ubashor Naki, from there he learns out that the or is prohibited from having hana. Es loidarishle. He doesn't darshan the es. Kedetanya, like it states in the Brisa, Shimon ha'amsuni va'amrei Nehemiah ha'amsuni. Either Shimon ha'amsuni or was some who said it was Nehemiah ha'amsuni. Hayadoresh kol esim shebetorah. He darshan, he expounded all the times that it said alif tov in the Torah to include something. Kivan she'igil le'es Hashem elokecha tira pirash. When he got to the pasuk es Hashem elokecha tira, so he said, what can be compared to the fear of Hashem? Amru loy talmidov. The Talmud turned to their Rebbe. Rebbe, kol esim shedar rashto maite halein. What about all the other esim that you expounded until now? What will be upon them? Omar lehem, he said to them, Kishem shekibalti schar al hadrisho, kach ani mekabel schar al aprisho. The same way that I got reward from expounding them, so too I will get reward from desisting. The Gemara goes on to say, Ad shebo Rabbi Akiva v'dorash, until Rabbi Akiva explained the Es Hashem l'chatira. Es Hashem l'chatira l'rabois talmidei chachamim. This comes to include the fear that one should have, the awe of Talmidei Chachamim. Says Rashi, l'rabbos Talmidei Chachamim, he brings a Mishnah in Avos, she'mara rabbecho k'marei shamayim. The mara that you should have for your Rebbe should be like the mara that you have of Shamayim. And therefore, Es Hashem l'chatira comes to rabbis Talmidei Chachamim.